Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Wednesday, January 22nd. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We recognize and celebrate the contributions of Indigenous communities in our shared cultural heritage. Lucan Biddulph is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples that have a unique relationship with the land and its resources. We endeavor to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices and to grow in knowledge. As we build meaningful relationships, we recognize contributions of Indigenous peoples and honor their leadership and partnership in shaping and strengthening our community. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. So it was 7 years ago that we began our Hockeyville journey. And I know that because of the good part of Facebook. It reminds me, comes up with memories. But it's in that spirit that I have so enjoyed following the successes of many of the teams of Lucan Minor Hockey this past season. This, after all, is tournament and specifically Silver Stick season. And I want to especially congratulate the U21 team for becoming international Silver Stick champions. It has been a long time since there has been an international champion from Lucan. And it is no easy feat, and the fact that they won in double overtime confirms that. So congratulations to Coach Jason Poff, the bench staff, and most importantly to the players. And of course, to the parents. I can imagine sitting through a game like that would have been, to say the least, a little bit stressful. Congratulations to everyone. It is quite an accomplishment. And I can assure the boys on that team that that will be a win that they will relive over and over as they go through life and tell that story. Congratulations. So we do have to go into a public meeting under the Planning Act. And I would like to ask for a mover and a seconder to move to adjourn our regular meeting. And that's at 4 minutes after 6. And convene into a public meeting under the Planning Act. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor, and that's carried. Before we get into the public meeting, I just kind of, because for anybody that's watching online, we do have an audience in person with us tonight. So I just want to kind of go over how the meeting will take place and how it'll be managed, and just a few housekeeping rules. So members of the public who wish to receive any further notifications of any of the applications being heard or considered today are asked to send an email to planning@lucanbiddulph.on.ca requesting further information. Please be advised that the comments expressed and any written material presented will become a matter of public record for full disclosure. If you have questions after the meeting on any application being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to our planning department. Members of the public who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council and provide comments on the application. I do have a list of people who have requested to speak, but I will open it up to anybody else that might want to add comments after hearing the applications. Please note that all questions and comments shall be directed to the chair of the meeting. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and decorum throughout the meeting. The order of proceedings for each of the planning applications in front of us will be as follows. First of all, I will ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and to present the staff report. Then the applicant or their agent will be given an opportunity to speak to their application. Then the public will be given the opportunity to ask questions or provide their comments. And when I call your name or when you indicate that you want to speak to the application, I would ask that you take a seat at the speaker's desk here. There's a mic there. You turn the button on and then the red light will let you know that you're on. And please state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in our minutes. The clerk will then note any additional comments received, which are not included in the planning report, and the committee may then ask questions of the applicant or the staff. And all questions and comments, again, shall be directed through myself as the chair. I will then ask for consideration of the motions regarding the applications. Okay, with that, the first application we've got in front of us is a zoning bylaw amendment application for a property on Revere Drive, PL-01-2025. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa to walk us through this one.
Through the chair to mayor, members of council, and the public, my name is Alyssa Soldo. I am a planner for Middlesex County, providing my professional planning services today for the township of Lucan Biddulph. The purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment application before council is to temporarily permit 2 single detached dwellings for a period not to exceed 3 years, which will continue to allow the construction of a new residence on the subject lands. The existing residence would be removed from the land upon expiration of the 3-year period or within 6 months upon occupancy of the new single detached dwelling, whichever occurs first. The subject property as a whole is a 4.4 hectare lot situated on the south side of Revere Drive, west of Prospect Hill Road. The lands are legally described as concession south boundary part of Lot 22 in the township of Lucan Biddulph, County of Middlesex, municipally known as 8699 Revere Drive. The lands contain a single detached dwelling and 2 accessory buildings in the form of sheds. Surrounding land uses include agricultural lands used for crop production on all sides. The lands are designated agricultural area in both the county and township official plans. They are currently zoned as General Agricultural A1 zone according to the Township Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. Comments have been received from various agencies. Middlesex County Emergency Services has made comments about 911 property addresses for the existing and new dwelling. The Lucan Biddulph Building Division made a comment about a full review being done at the time of a building permit application and setback requirements for septic systems. The Upper Thames River Conservation Authority noted that they have no objections to the application as the proposed home is set back sufficiently from their regulated area. No comments were provided by the public prior to the development of this report. This application has been reviewed against the provincial planning statement, county official plan, and the township's official plan. The request to temporarily permit 2 single detached dwellings is appropriate and represents good land use planning. As a safeguard, the applicant will be required to enter into a temporary use agreement. This will ensure through a security deposit that the existing home will be removed after the bylaw's expiration date or occupancy of the new home. Given the above, I am satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the PPS and conforms with both the county and township official plans. I am recommending approval of the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment and that the bylaw and draft agreement be brought forward for consideration of council. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Alyssa. Any questions or comments from the committee? I guess from the applicant. Anything to add from the applicant at this point? Okay. And are there any questions from the members of public on this application? Any questions or comments from the committee at this point or from council at this point? None? With that, you do have a recommended motion in front of you that zoning bylaw amendment application Z-14. Oh, that's right, I guess, because it's from the application was from 2024. Z-14/2024 for a temporary use zone filed by Kevin Hornberg and Jacqueline Horenberg to permit 2 single detached dwellings on the property for up to 3 years to allow a new residence to be constructed on the land known as 8699 Revere Drive be approved, and further that the owner be required to enter into a new temporary use agreement with the township and submit a deposit of $5,000 to ensure the removal of the existing dwelling. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We now have to adjourn the public meeting at 11 minutes after 6 to sit as the Committee of Adjustments under the Planning Act. And if I can get a mover and a seconder for us to do that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay. In front of us is a minor variance application for a property on Granton Line, PL-02-2025. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Yeah, so through the chair to members of the committee, my name is Dan Fitzgerald, Manager of Planning with Middlesex County, and I'm here tonight to provide professional planning services to the Committee of Adjustment. So the purpose and effect of this application for minor variance, which is A1/2025, is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw as it does relate to the minimum driveway width standards. The applicant is proposing a minimum driveway width of 2.6 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum driveway of 3 meters. And the effect of the variance would be to permit the reduced driveway width, which would allow the applicant to establish parking stalls at the rear of the existing building. So this property is located at 34427 Granton Line in Granton. It's on the west side of Granton Line, and it's north of the intersection at Granton and Fallon Drive. It is a bit of a unique shape in that it's narrow, but does maintain a long depth towards the rear. It contains an existing vacant structure that does span the entire width of the frontage of the property. And to that end, it also maintains an existing easement or a right-of-way on the property to the north, and that being 34429 Granton Line. The property is zoned central commercial C1, which does permit both commercial uses as well as residential uses above the first story. It's generally surrounded by residential properties on all sides. The easement and the right-of-way access, as noted, does exist. We have had legal counsel confirm its existence, and the purpose is maintained in fee simple on title of the lands subject to the variance, but I do note that it is located on the lands to the north. So as the easement currently does exist, we have been notified that the applicant could access the rear yard through the existing easement. However, as noted in the report, the bylaw requires a minimum width of 3 meters for a driveway. Again, which is the reason for the variance here tonight, should the applicant seek a building permit for the lands in the future. Given that it's only 2.6 meters, this size is not sufficient based on today's bylaw standard. So planning staff and township staff have reviewed the proposed reduction to the driveway against the 4 Planning Act tests. While it is acknowledged that the reduction would create a tight access point for a vehicle, it is noted that the right-of-way already exists and is registered on title of both parcels for this purpose. As such, a reduction does not change the existing condition guaranteed and afforded to the property. Given that the impact does remain the same, planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed variance would meet the tests of the Planning Act, while also acknowledging that it would be up to the property owner to ensure the access is maintained and utilized appropriately to the existing right-of-way. So with that said, planning staff are recommending approval, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. At this time, the applicant for the application or the matter in front of us is joining us via Zoom. I would ask Mr. Mendonca, is there anything that you would like to add at this point?
Yeah, hi, how you guys doing? I would like to add that, previous to the bylaw, I'm not sure when this bylaw was in effect, that it was used as a driveway to park in the back. I believe it was a doctor's or dentist's office, what I'm hearing from the people that live in the neighborhood. But that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this point, I will turn to my list of people that have indicated to our clerk that they would like to speak. And at this point, I'd like to call Mr. John Herbert up to the speaker's desk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Council, for allowing me to speak first so I can attend another event after this. And I'm just going to read my statement. First, my name is John Herbert, and I live at 244 King Street. And when I'm done, I do have copies for people if they wish. Dear members of the Lucan Biddulph Council, I'm writing to express my opposition to the minor variance application A1-2025. My wife Terry and I reside at 244 King Street, which is located directly behind 344-27 and 344-29 Granton Line. We have lived at this address since 1993 with our son and daughter. I also grew up in the same house from 1967 to 1991, so I'm very familiar with the properties and the pathway in question. In all these years, I do not recall ever seeing vehicles use this pathway as a driveway to access the rear of the apartment building. The idea of cars utilizing this narrow space is concerning, especially given its limited width and the fact that doorways from both buildings open directly onto it. I believe this is one reason why the regulation minimum width of 3 meters for a driveway exists. 3 meters would allow a vehicle to use a driveway and a person on the driveway to safely move out of the way if necessary. When people lived in the apartments, exiting out the north side of the door that opens onto the pathway could have been life-threatening if a car was using it at the same time. In previous years, the property owners of the 3 buildings allowed children to walk through the pathways as a shortcut from King Street to Main Street. The pathway was commonly used as a walkway during that time, whether it was me rushing to catch the bus as a boy in the 70s, my grandfather using it to get mail in the 80s, or our daughter visiting friends on Main Street in the 1990s. It has never been used as a regular driveway, and such use would pose a significant safety concern. We installed fencing many years ago to block the view of the poorly maintained apartment building and backyard. Assuming the building is ever able to safely be used as a residence after over 25 years of neglect, we would prefer not to see vehicles parked behind the apartment. If the property owner wishes to establish a parking lot, it seems more practical and safer to consider a driveway through 344-23 Granton Line, which to our understanding is also owned by the property owner. My final statement is actually, I'm just going to state it as is and then reflect on it. Finally, I would like to question the validity of the application submitted by 132-02640 Canada Inc., as this corporation was dissolved on August 12th, 2024, according to Corporations Canada website records. Now, as we were sitting here, and through the first part, I did check on the website, and I can see that it has been renewed as of today. So that as of today, the whatever requirements have been filled, and that corporation does exist again. But for the last 2 years, they've been waiting for paperwork, I guess, at corporations, and it was dissolved on the date I stated, August 12th. Thank you for your time and for your dedication to serving our community. I appreciate your consideration of these concerns. Any questions?
I don't think we've got any questions of you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you give Tina a copy? If you want to give Tina a copy of that, that would be helpful. Okay. Okay, Barbara Clark Pepper.
Good evening, members of our township and community members. Here are my support. I am Barbara Pepper, the owner of the land in between Mr. Madonka's building and my home. I am here to object to any land use change from foot traffic to vehicle on my land on the right-of-way. I have many reasons for objecting. The first is I heat my home with wood that is delivered at the front of my house. They cannot get to the back as the right-of-way is too narrow. I then use a gorilla cart to transport the wood to the back. Takes several days to fill my wood house with 3 to 4 deliveries a year. I always ask them to dump it over as far as possible to leave enough room for foot traffic, as it does fall partly on the right-of-way. I also hook up my generator during power outages for emergency uses of my land to the hydro panel that is located in the right-of-way inside. Other issues would be constant noise in my living room, kitchen, and bedroom, as well as headlights in my windows. I put my blue bins in the driveway in the winter. You can't put them in the snowbank. Vehicles would not be able to get down the right-of-way when I have my window open that opens outwards into the right-of-way. Not to mention his side door in the right-of-way for people to enter and exit his building. Also, my door to go to my yard is beside the right-of-way, compromising my safety. There are concerns for children riding bicycles on the sidewalk and people walking. Anyone driving out of there with the building being very close to the sidewalk, I think it's about 24 inches, cannot see a child swiftly coming on a bicycle. My patio is on the edge of the right-of-way. I would have vehicles driving within inches of me and my company. This would also devaluate my property significantly. A tow truck would never get back there. It is too narrow. So is that going to mean we're going to start having derelict vehicles in the backyard? There would be dust and continual vibration to my rock foundation. My home is 156 years old. Who is going to be liable when a vehicle is leaving and 3 feet of ice and snow slides off my roof and comes crashing down onto their car? Who is going to also run out with a shovel when that happens? He has very little respect for my land right now. I did submit 2 videos that shows pictures of him flooding my patio with a groundwater pipe that he put in the right-of-way. And another one where he was dumping dirt in the right-of-way from his basement. He wouldn't stop when I asked him to stop. He laughed at me. I also have 2 pictures where he interrupts my privacy. He would come back to the back and would start saying things. And this day, he came to the back and he had taken the shutdown permit that was put in his front window, and he had it, and he said, "Do you see this paper? Do you see it?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I see it."
So,
and he posted it to his building so that I would see it.
Mrs. Pepper, I appreciate how emotional this is, but we have to stick to the application and the merits of the application, okay?
Well, this is more for privacy.
Okay.
My privacy
And
is
while
being
I
interrupted.
Well, I certainly respect that. We've got to stick to the application, okay?
Okay. I wrote a petition and I asked people to sign it. I went in this weather to ask people to sign it. And I read the petition to each person and gave them the paper from the township about what this was all about. And this is my petition. I am an elderly resident living with several acute conditions that affect my breathing, hearing, and walking capabilities. For 4 decades, I have raised my children and shaped my life here in our close-knit community. Despite all the wonderful memories shared in this place, my peace, my safety, my security, and my privacy are now under threat. We are standing on the premises of a change that could detrimentally impact our lives forever and set a precedent for future properties in our area's future. A city landowner is pursuing modifications of land usage rights from foot traffic to vehicle traffic, a blatant disregard for the legal width restrictions and the 10-foot safety standard for such transit actions. This proposed 7.9-foot roadway would be wedged in between my home and their building, creating a dangerously narrow passage for vehicular intrusion that falls drastically short of the safety norm and poses a threat of my well-being, pedestrians' well-being, and to my home and normal day-to-day home life. This is not just about fear of waking up to the nuisance of vehicle noises disrupting our serenity, or the concern of the potential damage to my home and foundation. Also, that I heat with wood and will have no way of wood being delivered to the house in my laneway, or when the hydro goes out. I will not enjoy having my windows being left open on that side of my home anymore. This is also about the very real safety threats that come when sight along the sidewalk is nearly completely obstructed. The dangers this poses to pedestrians, especially children and the elderly, and those with disabilities like myself, are immeasurable. This is a fight worth fighting, a cause worth supporting, and a change worth preventing. Each signature and/or personal letter sent could save our neighborhood, protect our home, and preserve the essence of our community now and in the future. Land change requests just like this one. Join us in safeguarding our homes and our lives for the impending traffic. The peace in our homes and the safety of our neighborhoods depend on your support. Please sign the petition, and we encourage all of you who want to write your own letters in support to the township of Lucan Biddulph. Thank you for your time, everybody, and your support. I have 86 signatures on my petition.
Okay, we can get those and they can form part of the record.
I had your paper with me.
Sandra McCurdy. Bear with me a moment. I do have a couple of visuals, so. Water's good. Good evening, council members. Kathy. My name is Sandra McCurdy. I live at 438 Queen Street in Granton, Ontario, and I am here to strongly oppose this variance application as a longtime, over 40-year resident in Granton, and daughter of my mother, Barbara Pepper, owner of the beautiful Victorian home, a yellow brick home at 34429 Granton Line. This variance would massively affect her home, and that she's enjoyed for so long. My mom has raised 4 children. She's raised 3 all on her own, and 1 after the devastating loss of her late husband, Albert Pepper, in 2017. She raised us all here on her own in Granton, and that's our home, our community, and our sanctuary. I would like to start by reading the MLS listing ad that was posted before the building was sold to Mr. Madonka, describing the 34429 Granton Line building that is the property requesting the variance today, and I quote, property was formerly used with I'm a little nervous here. Trying to get this done quickly. 4 residential dwellings. This property is in need of extensive repairs, currently has a collapsed roof, water in the basement, and extensive mold. Value is in the land. The realtor nor the seller can confirm that that it is a legal fourplex. There is a city debenture for sewer and water for roughly $1,000 to be paid by on closing by the buyer. Please do your own diligence in regards to all aspects of this property. There will be no viewings of the interior of this property until closing due to unsafe conditions. This is strictly as a property, as is property. Apologize. Note, the property has no parking. End quote. As you can imagine, there has been lots of issues and concerns that have come along since this unbelievable purchase. This property since erected in 1968 has never had parking for obvious reasons. I do have a visual here. You guys have a copy of this. I just I didn't know everybody. Maybe not the best, but hey. I'm not a professional. Are you sure you weren't a teacher? Are you sure you weren't a teacher? I'm not a professional builder, whatever, planner. However, I do have a little bit of experience. So, according to the regulations, this variance will require 2-way access for in and out traffic, and 2-way traffic requires 6 meters. And we only have 2.5 at the mouth. But this is just not a straight 2.5 meters shot, okay? I'm sorry, are you guys wanting to see this as well? It's not a straight 2.5 meter shot from the front to back. There is a bottleneck. So the survey shows that there's a 7.7 foot point on the right of way between the building and the right of way.
And there's also a measurement where there's the hydrometer, and that measures at 7.8 feet as well, which brings us down to, sorry, only have one hand here. Brings us down to 2.35. Oh, thank you. And 2.38 meters. So yeah, that's not 2.5, guys. That's 2.3. 2.3. It narrows in the center. So with that being said, it's too tight. And add to that, two more points I'd like to make with the parking lot in the back. Regulation states that there needs to be 1 meter on each side of the property line. If you're looking, it's right here. That's why I blew it up. And that would require 11 meters and it only allows for 9.75 of the math. So there's not enough room in the back for 11 meters of parking, including a two-way access for the building, because there's no exit. So there needs to be two-way access. Also, would just like to also point out that there was an existing fence. This is from 1970s. And so there was an existing fence there. So there's a board fence, board fence, board fence. So does that not present squatters' rights? When the right of way was put in, it was placed there for low maintenance, because in the southeast corner of the building at question here, there was a septic tank. So they provided the right of way here for foot traffic and for low maintenance for pumping of the septic tank. And that was conveyed verbally, and there's no other reason for the right of way access. If it was for vehicular traffic, you'd think it would be wider. It's evident that it was not built for vehicular traffic. It's just a right of way for people to come in and go in and out. And my mother has been totally okay with that since day one. So I'm strongly opposed to this, this approval. So then I got thinking, well, gee, what kind of common vehicles are also driven by Canadians in Ontario? And there's many. There's about 10, top 10, right? But I went to, there's Chevy Silverado, the Ford F-Series, then the Toyota RAV, then the Honda CR-V, then the GMC Sierra, and the Toyota Tacoma. I could go on for 10, but I'll try and cut this short. I do have some handouts. Everybody likes handouts. So I'm gonna start over this way, sorry. So this just shows just how tight it can be in there. I'll bring them over. Just so you guys can have a quick peek. And the Ford F-150, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Is 8.8 feet with windows, which is a 2.6 meters. And we have 2.5 here. We also have 2.3. So 2.6 meters wide for a very common pickup. A Ford F-Series won't fit. So I got to thinking, well, geez, you know. You'll also see here that like a very common SUV vehicle is the other picture there as well, okay? it might fit, but you've got to be very, very good at driving, I guess you could say. Unless you want to scrape your vehicle. So I decided to go down and do it myself and see what my minivan would do. And my minivan is 7.4 feet or 2.2 meters. So that should fit technically, right? Yeah. This is me trying to get into the location. Not to mention snow, ice. The entry door. It's right there. Hydro panel. I do have a photo of the hydro panel if you guys would like to see proof of the hydro panel. Why I can't find it right now is beyond me. But it's here somewhere. Do apologize. And you know, my mother, like she said, I have to reiterate, she has hearing impairment, breathing troubles, other disabilities. She could be harmed by a vehicle coming in and out of here. The two areas are super close. This would just affect her life horribly. And again, I oppose. My last couple of points before I close. Mr. Madonka owns and has been repairing, draining the basement of a leak, collecting rent from the other home beside, which is at 34425, which if you can see here, this is the building at question. The other property that he owns is this one. Okay, and it's a very large property, actually. It's like a lot and a half. And there's approximately 30 feet in allowance for two-way traffic, which could work for two-way traffic at the entryway here into the building.
So, Sandra.
Yeah.
We have to stick to the properties.
Oh,
We have to stick to the properties
Sure.
that are on the application.
sure.
Okay.
Look, this just, you know, would provide so much more parking and to me would make more sense. Okay. And over here, we're looking at a really narrow entry that bottlenecks, has safety issues, safety concerns, not only for people, buildings, vehicles, or whoever's brave enough to scrape the vehicle down in between there. Just saying, that's very narrow. Lowering property values, ruining yards, homes, eliminating people's peace, quiet, and enjoyment. Especially my mom's. And I honestly can't even believe it's being looked at today. This was ultimately not the original intent for this right of way. And it was not, it's evident that it's not for vehicular traffic. I was shocked, to be honest, to see that it was looking like to be granted today. So in closing, it was very unfortunate for me to see and disheartened to see that the requested motion was slated to be granted. So to me and for the rest of the residents and the taxpayers coming forward today, see that this may have started out as an unfair or unbiased or untransparent hearing here. So therefore, I would like to strongly encourage and thank all of you here in the position to vote on this, because you've been voted by us, by the people, and you work for us and for this great community that we're all in. And I trust that your decision will be made on a non-biased, fair, and transparent way. To this really unrealistic request. And based on what a reasonable person would do. Finally, I would like to also turn and thank the community members that did come, friends and family here tonight did their due diligence, did their research, wrote letters, signed petitions. And as we all come together, we all, in the very strongest possible terms, we oppose, we oppose, we oppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Which one?
The one we find.
Yeah. No, a hydrometer?
The hydrometer, yeah,
There.
sorry. The guy wanting your card too.
Yeah, I'll give you. No, sorry. That one, that one.
Yeah, for no, that's not.
All right, of
I'll give it back.
course. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Sorry it took so
No.
long.
Thank you. I can honestly say, as you collect everything, I don't think I can remember having had visuals presented to this extent before. So.
It's
I
a
know.
good thing or a bad
No,
thing, I don't
no.
know.
Okay, Sandra, Dale Wheeler.
Evening, my name is Dale Wheeler and I live at 34431 Grant Line, just north of Barb. I don't know what I'm going to be able to add now after hearing the other speakers. They've covered a lot of my points, but I do have a couple of things I would like to bring up. And that's in regards to the legality of right-of-ways. It's my understanding that Barb is the owner of that right-of-way. It's registered on her deed, correct? Now that, and also on the gentleman's deed. But in my opinion, or in my knowledge, that does not mean she has given up the right to have input as to what happens to that right of way. Yes, she has to abide by the original writing when that right of way was first developed, but she should still be able to have input as to how that right of way is used. She's paid taxes on it for over 40 years or for 40 years, and she'll have to continue to pay those taxes. To me, that amounts to subsidizing Mr. Mendoza with his business of rental properties at the expense, and I think great expense, to her property. I think she'll find that at some point in the future, she will have significant troubles selling that property to her detriment. Now, I don't know, and also I'd like to say that before you do make a decision, I don't know if you've actually physically went and looked, but I recommend that you do. And I don't think you'll have any issue turning down this application. So, thank you. Most of my points have already been covered.
Thank you for that, Mr. Wheeler. And that is actually a good reminder that if anybody else is coming up to speak and the points have already been made, you can just state your name and your address and say that you are in support of other comments, just so that we don't need to be repeating the same arguments over, and they will be reflected in the minutes from there. Okay, Ken Lamburn.
Hi, I'm Ken Lambert and I live at 34467 Granton Line. And I've lived in Granton all my life. And I can always remember with that apartment, it was only a walkway. I had a brother, brother-in-law, and an uncle. And we had to carry everything from the sidewalk to the side door. We couldn't go in the laneway. And I don't know how this got all switched that you want to use it as a laneway now. That should never happen. It's not big enough. Somebody's going to get hurt bad, and then it's going to have a whole different ball game. It's too small. And I just wanted to say what I've always heard for the years that I lived in Granton. So I won't take a lot of your time. You know, the meeting's getting long. Yeah, okay. And I want to thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamburn. Sally Michaelis? She's not here. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Is there a washroom here?
Yeah.
Right in here? Okay, thank you.
Okay, those were all the names I had of people from the public that had indicated that they wanted to speak. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? So I'll go to this gentleman with the Canadians hat on, and if you want to come up and to the speaker desk, and as I say, state your name and your address.
Hi, Council. My name is James Pepper. I live at 355 Sandringham Crescent, London, Ontario. I'm the son of Barbara. I've lived at this residence for 25 years at 34429 Granton Line. I haven't lived there the past 6 years. My entire life, that laneway has never been used as a laneway. It has only been a walkway. In my entire life, I've never seen a car in that backyard. I don't know if the backyard is even big enough for so-called parking spots or why you would need to bring a vehicle into the backyard. For yes, parking reasons, I don't know how big a backyard needs to be to fit a parking lot in, but the backyard is insufficient enough size to put a parking lot in. You also run the risk of fire hazards if a car catches on fire, breakdowns, tow trucks, as mentioned before. The laneway is too small. You can't fit a car down there unless you scrape the mirrors down both sides of the structures. You could try, like everybody says, but it's very, very, very narrow. I would like to repeat what somebody else said and invite you out to come look at it and see before you make a decision, because once you see it, you'll scratch your head and think, this is way too small to be a laneway for a parking lot in the backyard. This building has never been used for commercial use. There's only been about 2 stores in Granton in my entire lifetime. This building is not commercially fit, barely residentially fit. So the only way that they can park there is out on the roadway. And you can't park there between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. It's a bylaw of Lucan Biddulph Township. So in the winter months when they plow snow, there's absolutely zero parking at all around this entire structure in the entire town of Granton. If you want to park at the park and walk over to your home on Main Street, you're welcome to do so. But in the wintertime, you're not allowed to park on the road. There's no entrance to the backyard. There's never been a parking lot back there. And it's craziness. So I completely object this absurd idea of putting in a laneway in my mom's right-of-way that she legally owns, and she doesn't even use it for that herself. You can maybe bring a lawnmower back there if you want to, but there's no way you're getting a car in that laneway. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, James. And then, yep.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Lambert and I live at 34467 Granton Line. I have lived in Granton for a good 60 years and never, ever has that apartment been used for doctors or dentists or anything. I was there as it was being built, and I had an uncle and a sister that rented apartments there in the early 70s. And I was there when they were doing the walkthrough, and the landlord, I guess at the time, specifically said you could not pull a vehicle into that area, that it was only being allowed for people to use the side door. If you had to carry groceries or something, you had to use a wagon or have a bunch of people take it in. That building has been basically condemned for years. I don't even know how it's even possible to be safe. If there was a fire, it's going to spread to both the houses on each side of it because it's that close. And I just wanted to say that I've never seen it used as a business of any sort. And my family that lived there, their cars had to be parked on the street. There was no parking, none. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bonnie. Hey, is there anyone else from the audience, the gallery that would like to speak? Okay, then I will turn to the committee for any questions or comments on the application in front of us. Councillor Westman.
I too have lived in Granton for 60 years. I'm very familiar with both buildings. I've had family that have lived in the apartments back in the late 70s and early 80s. I'm very familiar with that right of way, and I've been there and seen it personally. I'm familiar with the measurements and with the hydrometer and the set out from the windowsill on the building in question narrows it down quite a bit. The back section of that building was always used as a septic weeping bed. And, you know, getting into it, I think would be very difficult, not just getting through the alley, but turning into the yard. There are some established fruit trees at the back, which I understand if it was pushed through in court, it could be ordered to be cut down, which further exacerbates the entire situation. I do not for a moment feel that this would be a safe thing to bring vehicles down for the tenants, potentially at some point, if this building is ever made habitable again, for the tenants entering through the door to the north of the building, or for the Pepper family accessing their own doors and you know, using their own property. I personally cannot support this, just from my concern about safety in the community, and there could be a potential for the buildings to be damaged, which would further place hardship upon the Pepper family. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from the committee? Councillor Regan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the visuals, because that helps. So I just have a question maybe for Planner Dan. The right of way was established. So I want to ask about the right of way and when that was established, because I'm hearing 3 meters is what the bylaw says. Was the right of way established, and was the intent of the established right of way, do we know, to be a walkway or a driveway? Because it sounds to me like it was a walkway originally. And if it was before, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it was before 1972 for the Planning Act, then like, if it's always been a walkway, you know, do you understand what I'm saying? So I just need, can we establish that? Because that makes a difference, because if it's established as a walkway, then it's a walkway in my mind. Oh.
Yeah, so through the chair to committee member Reagan. Some interesting comments have been brought up tonight. There's some additional information that has come to light, and I would suggest to the committee that a decision on this be deferred to allow planning as well as our legal counsel to look into the right-of-way documents to see exactly what was registered on title and what rights exist to the property owners.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. Did you have something else? Sorry, Councillor Regan.
I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, Dan, I appreciate your comment there. A lot of interesting stuff, a lot of stuff I didn't necessarily agree with or to do with, you know, again, staying focused on what's in front of us on some of the comments, but certainly overall, you know, I struggle maybe with planning and legal spending any time on this because of a deferral as opposed to just turning it down. And then it may create more headaches for you. Again, we do represent for all the community, but also the applicant too, and everybody here and everybody. But I struggle with us creating that work for the planner and in legal. So I don't want to, I don't want to put my hand up to defer to create that work. So I certainly would support denying the application.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? I guess I'm going to have to maybe disagree with you, Deputy Mayor. I do believe that maybe in light of the planner's comments, if we just deferred it, I don't think that this is a complicated file. I think our legal counsel can probably work through it very quickly. But I think his comments indicating that with new information coming to light, getting a better understanding of the historical use possibly could better protect us from an appeal or anything like that. And so I would be more encouraged to defer it tonight. As I say, I don't believe it's complicated. I think we can probably get an opinion very quickly. Dan?
Yeah, and through the chair to members of the committee, I would just note that typically in these particular situations, we would actually refer it to the applicant to provide us with the proof. Then we would have our legal counsel review that. So we would put it on them to provide us with the opportunity to give us the proof as to what the easement was for, what was it established for, what are the rights, and then we would provide it to our legal counsel and planners to review to make sure that, you know, we either agree or disagree, or we would look into it further from there and then provide a recommendation back to council.
Any other comments, Deputy Mayor Manders?
Just so the audience is aware of what I'm thinking, I want to verify on a vote because we don't have a fifth voter here. And the reason why you may see me vote how I may vote, if it's 2-2, I think it's a lost vote and it actually gets approved, I think, correct? Or what happens on or
It depends on what the motion is.
motion is?
If the motion is to buy a boat and it's 2-2, then we don't buy the boat, right? So
If Alex makes a motion
mhm,
to
deny.
deny it, and I was to second that and two other members did not vote that way, then it would be denied? No, that's what I'm,
It would be a lost vote.
okay. And then, so where would be the next steps then in that? I just want to make sure, does that, yeah.
So through the chair to Deputy Mayor Manders, this is why it gets, this is why I think a deferral is probably the right way to go. So you can get the rest of the information, make a full report from the planner and make a proper decision. If the motion, you are correct, if the motion is made by Alex to deny, it's seconded by you. So that's a valid motion. It gets put on the floor. If it's a 2-2 vote, the motion is not approved. So the denial is not approved. It doesn't mean it is approved. It means it's not approved. So it doesn't actually advance the minor variance application. It's like no decision. So that's why I'm suggesting rather than get too complicated, I think, I would suggest or agree with the recommendation from your planner to defer it to allow more information and then make a formal decision at the next meeting.
Right. Yeah, because there was a lot of new information and probably deferral is probably a better direction. I mean, obviously, Dan, you've been enlightened a little bit more on this information and obviously more concerned to your, as you've said that compared to your recommendation, I assume.
Yeah, so through the chair, we always say if there's, new information that comes to light that could potentially impact, a former recommendation as how we got to that conclusion, then certainly we would generally suggest to the committee to, hey, give us time to go back and reconsider this. And if there is additional information that we need to consider, we just want to make sure that we're getting it right at the end of the day.
So again, I'm not, I'm not in favor of the application, but I'm not, but I'm also in favor of, the problem, yeah. I'm just simply not, but, I don't know what to do.
Well, you mull on that and any other comments or questions from the committee? Councillor Westman?
Just for my own housekeeping here. So if if I were to make a motion to deny the recommendation and it goes to a lost vote, then would any other member of council be able to make a motion to defer?
So through the chair to Councillor Westman. See, this is where it gets messy and I tend to like things not messy. So if you make a motion to deny and the vote's 2-2, and then someone else makes a motion to approve and it's a 2-2 vote, we're nowhere. And that's why I think deferral, because we have an absent member here, a deferral is appropriate at this point. And
I think Alex's question was, if the first motion was to deny or approve, and then it was both 2-2, can the subsequent motion then be to defer?
yes, I believe so. Yep. So I just wanted to make one more comment, and really this is why we have this process is to allow the public to bring further information. Okay, because we don't know what we don't know. So that's, you know, I would suggest that the process works in this case especially. So again, a deferral is appropriate to sort of gather that information, figure it out, and make an informed decision at the next meeting. Because again, no matter what decision these four or this council makes, it can be appealed. If it's denied, it can be appealed. If it's approved, it can be appealed. So we as a municipality want to make the best decision possible so that if it does get appealed, we are in good standing and we feel comfortable that we can defend the decision.
So, committee, I'm looking for either one last call for comments from the committee or a member of the committee to make a motion. Oh,
But I guess Madam Mayor, you said my comments you didn't agree with. But so I just want to get that clear that Dan and staff would go back to the applicant for further information, and until that was satisfied or not, it wouldn't, see, I still, you know, not satisfied, but I guess, you know, and you're looking for further information from the applicant. And he would have to provide that. But I still, I mean, yeah, it's basically, if I move a motion forward to deny the application, I get a seconder, that's what proceeds with, correct? If one other person agrees with that, correct? Motion's on the floor, one more person agrees with that. That's all I need, and then the application is denied. If yeah, that's what, if I get one person to agree with that, correct? And then from there,
Deny the recommendation.
if I put a motion forward right now to deny the application, one other person agrees with me, the other two don't, the application is denied. Oh, the motion is dead. The motion's dead. The motion still, so what happens for the applicant then moving forward? That's what I mean. It's
Yeah. Can we
wait, you want to take
can we have a 2-minute break
yeah,
here?
we can take a 2-minute break. Councillor Regan, Deputy Mayor Manders to move in second, a 2-minute break.
okay,
Yes.
yes.
In favor. Okay. Okay, thank you for that brief recess. Ron, is there something that you wanted just to
Yeah.
say?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So after conferring with the planner, the strongest of, of opinion, the recommendation is to defer the decision pending further clarification on the information we've received tonight. And that's, I can't stress enough that we need, as staff, we need an opportunity to digest that and bring back a formal report, an amended report, a full report. Like it's, and I think we have to think long-term in this instance here. So to me, that's staff's recommendation to the committee. Okay.
Oh,
Okay, any other comments? Okay,
no,
Deputy Mayor?
yeah, in light of kind of learning and listening and having a better understanding of supporting the planner as far as information and future support and just in general, and also the, deferring doesn't mean we're deferring his application, the recommendation. We're simply deferring it, and it is in the best, trust me, it's in the best interest. And that's why I'm going to make that motion. So to defer it.
All right, so a motion to defer this application and file by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Regan.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, all in favor of that? And that is carried. So next steps, there'll be there will be further communication as to when it will be brought back to council. And I would just, you've all signed in, so you will all receive notifications of that as it moves forward. Yeah.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just a point of clarification. That motion is to defer a decision and request an additional report from planning staff based on information we've received tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that motion is clear. with
It's
the mover
clear.
and seconder.
Clear for that, everybody. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for that wordsmithing. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to the members of the public that come out. As we always say, when we get public participation, we certainly appreciate it. And as I said, make sure you just check and further communication will come as to what meeting it will be brought back to. Okay. With that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to rise from the Committee of Adjustments and resume our regular council meeting at 7:17. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Westman, all in favor, and that's carried. And you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the council meeting. I'm sure that you would be just on the edge of your seats, but certainly we respect your time, and now would probably be a good time if you wanted to leave and watch whatever is on TV tonight and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. Okay, we do not have any delegations tonight, so I'll move forward to the minutes that are in front of us. And we have a set of minutes in front of us from the January 7th meeting. And if there doesn't need to be any corrections to that, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those as circulated. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor, Councillor Regan, sorry. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. Nothing has been added to our list. Did council want to add anything to business arising from the last set of minutes? Okay. On to correspondence. We've received a number of items in the last couple of weeks. Nothing has been pulled for our discussion. But I would ask council if there was anything that, if there was any items that you wanted to bring to our attention for discussion. Nothing? Then if I could get a mover and a seconder to receive those items for information purposes. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. On to committee reports. Blue Water.
We had a meeting. It was short. Now with the producer responsibility and really just dealing with the waste, the meetings aren't they're just not as meaningful. I don't know how else to say it. But we are looking at going to more quarterly meetings, but still a quick call in once a month. Just on a quick update maybe, and then just proceeding. So really nothing to report. And again, just it's just business as usual. So, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. CEDC, there's a set of minutes there, but Councillor Regan, did you want to speak to them?
No, I just wanted to say that we have the count of them. I've already reported on those minutes. They're there for anyone that has any questions. And our next meeting is January the 28th, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Nothing from Lake Huron. The Biddulph Blanchard Fire Board met last week and the Lucan Biddulph Fire Board is meeting this week. Nothing from ABCA, Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Those minutes I've reported on for the December 12th PRAC minutes, and our next meeting is February the 12th.
Thank you. On to staff reports. Do you have anything verbal, Ron? Anything? Okay. Tina.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor and the rest of council. Before you is an information report, which is a follow-up to the street naming policy that was adopted by council in September last year. Further to that policy being developed, a street name inventory list has been started by staff, and this list is being circulated to council right now for any further input. It will also be circulated to First Nations and local service clubs, but it is being presented as part of section 5.3, I believe it is, of the policy. It just describes on how the list is created, embedded, and input received. There is also additional ways that names can be added to the list as set out in the policy. But as I said before, this is being brought forward as information to see if any council has any input, and it will then be circulated as mentioned earlier, and hopefully formally adopted to have on hand should developers request to see names that are on our inventory list.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? I would just suggest, if we're suggesting names, if we can do that through email or anything like that, rather than having that discussion. Councillor Westman.
Yeah, after reading the list, I have to say I was very moved that some of the names that are on there are being recognized and honored. So they are the families that build our community. So I'm pretty impressed with that.
Thank you. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam. I was just wondering if members of the community, if I missed that, sorry, but members of the community, can they also make suggestions like these suggestions can come to you like in writing, but they just from anywhere and anyone? Or do they have to have like a reason for that or historical background?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Absolutely. There is a street naming request form. They would have to follow the criteria that's in the policy, and they can be submitted to staff for consideration. And just like what we've done with what's on the list, it would be vetted through Public Works and EMS services. And the key will be that not just any name can be submitted, it does have to meet the criteria that's listed within the policy. But yes, any member of the public can use the form and follow the policy and submit requests.
Okay, no, thank you. I just thought that would be important information for people to have. Thank you very much, Tina. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Manders.
Sorry, Tina, you're probably going to say, David, you did not read this very thoroughly. I'm sorry. I'm just the selection process of the name again. Who selects it and decides the name? It's.
So just so I'm clear on what you're asking there, is it when a developer goes to choose the list, our name on the list, or you're asking?
Well, when there's a poll and we need names on it, how does that, how are the, like whether whether it's something created or town, or whether it be our industrial park, or whether it be a developer, that like any way, when we need to create a new name, who selects from the list? How is it selected?
So that list is provided to developers when they're looking for potential names for streets.
So the developer selects the names for our community. That's what I want
Off
to
the
verify,
list.
off the list.
Yes. I will ask Jeff to maybe add to that.
Yeah, so there's still the ability for staff to approve the developer's submission. So basically what we're doing is giving the developers a list of names and some history behind the names. And they can choose through the names, whether they want to say they want to do a section of a development under wildlife or under landscape that relates back to the to the community, or whether they want to put in historic names. But it still comes back under the development, whether it's a site plan or whether it's a development agreement, it still comes back to us for approval of those names. So we've talked about this. The example is at the top is Colonel James Hodgins Avenue. That is quite a long name, and we would want to make sure that that name is an appropriate place in our community where we agree where we want that name.
So it sounds like the developer selects from the names provided, and then staff either concurs or doesn't concur with it, if they did that. And then if they didn't, I guess, where does this sit if they wanted to submit, say, their own family names or heritage or their own grandparents' names or somebody in their own families? Is it, I just want to, is it from the list, is what they have to do, or is it opened up to whatever they want to do, and you decide, that's where, and you got to decide whether it's the list provided by the community, or it's by the developer and what he wants.
Yeah, maybe, and through the mayor, and maybe Tina's better because she knows the policy a little better than I do, but I believe there's a section in there that we do have the criteria of why these names are on the list. So if a developer understands that it's again, it's the wildlife that relates to the area that we're submitting, and then they want to submit a wildlife name under that same criteria or policy that originally allowed that name to go on the list, then we can review it and go from there. But it just cannot be something that is outside the policy and the criteria that of the names that go on the list. Is that, Tina?
Correct. And section 6.1 of the policy describes in more detail of how, so for instance, it says section or paragraph 4, a minimum of one street name and no less than 75% of all streets in the proposed development must be chosen from the approved street name list. So there is a process in there for developers to submit requests for their names, but it has to meet the criteria of what's in the policy. Yeah, and then it would be vetted and considered by staff.
Because I like everything you're saying so far, because it's got nothing to do with council. And the thing is, there's not many policies. It's just interesting. That's why we're about to pass this, that we have no input on. And typically we have, like, which is fine. And I like everything you said. I don't want you to change what you're saying. It's just interesting, us putting our hands up for a policy that we have no really, nor should we, which I'm fine with input on. So that's, I guess, my comment, right? Because so far I've heard two staff members talk, and they haven't talked anything about council. And again, I like that.
Yeah.
Get my light on here. And maybe Ron and Tina, we did have this discussion that as this list goes on and there has to be more names added to it, as staff, we will start the next round. But we talked about once per council session or term, that we would bring back a
The
new
list.
list of names
List.
saying, here's what staff is now proposing to add to the list. And that it goes back down through council, so at least they can see the names that we're adding to the list. So
But for information purposes only.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For information purposes only. It doesn't even need to be, whether it be an email, whether it be part, for public to see, but for information purposes only, no input, which is fine. Yep.
No input on the list. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, so this is, where am I here? This is just to receive for information. Yeah, this is just to receive this report for information.
Well, I maybe wouldn't have had so many questions. I guess I didn't read that enough. I thought I was voting on. There you go. This here should have been on Tina's comments. Yeah.
What he thought you were gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Okay. Just for, we're not even voting on. Yeah, this is just for information. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, very
So
good.
just to clarify, so again, Tina, staff are looking for basically the nod of the head from council on the list that we currently have in front of you. We will also be sending that out to all the people that Tina had in her report, not the least of which is First Nations. So there's still an opportunity if you on your way home, all of a sudden you think, oh, I forgot a name, send it into Tina. If it meets the criteria, we can still add it to the list. So this is the opportunity once per term of council for your input on the list of approved names.
And I would add, if the list doesn't change, it is for information tonight, but not to have to bring it back. If the list doesn't change or nothing further added, the motion could be to receive for information at this time. If further additions are made, it can be brought back for approval, but if it remains as is, would be approved at this time.
So yeah, sure. What, Deputy Mayor?
So eventually we're approving this. This isn't just for information. So yeah.
Tonight
So go
it's
back.
just for information.
So go back.
It has
I'm glad
to be
I asked the question. Still got you. Okay.
But it has to be
Yeah,
circulated,
gotcha.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think too, to the point of that Councillor Regan made about reminding members of the public that they can still submit, that there is that process that they can submit suggestions and that sort of thing. So,
Okay.
all right. So if I can get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Did you have anything verbal other to bring up?
No, thank you.
Okay. So no building or bylaw. Finance, Catherine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight's report is another report regarding the budget for 2025. And the purpose is to hopefully get council approval on the operating and the capital budgets. So our process thus far has been staff put the budget together, the finance committee met and went over it line by line in November. And both the operating and the capital budgets were presented to council in December. Regarding the operating budget that was presented, the 4.42% municipal tax rate increase was adopted by a motion by council in December, but to bring back for a report in January for absolute final approval. And there weren't any other changes recommended at the time. So it still stands at the 4.42% tax rate increase. Regarding the capital budget that was presented, there were several projects listed and council gave staff direction to review the list and see where we can come back to maybe defer projects to get down to a manageable size or put less strain on the reserves. So staff met late December and went through the list and made the following changes. Mostly in the Parks and Rec department, as you can see listed there. So the Granton Ballpark clay is going to be deferred to a 2026 discussion as we were not successful with the grant for 2025.
the Market Street Ball Diamond, defer the dugout portion of that project to 2027. The bleachers at the soccer field complex will defer that to 2026 when that field be more in use. The trails at the soccer complex amount to defer that to the following year. And the design regarding the second ice pad to defer that to 2026 discussions. Further to that, the clay for the Market Street Ball Diamond priced at 35,000 could be deferred, but completing it at the same time as we do the fencing and backstop is be more efficient. And the fencing and backstop project remains because that was a safety issue to be addressed. The home side dressing room renovation, which is an estimated cost of $1 million, is contingent on receiving the grant. So if the grant's not successful, they'll have to come back for further discussion on how to move forward with that project, especially in regards to financing of it. In regards to public works, there is one project, the Nicolline Avenue paving and rehab project. It's on the list for 2025, but it's something that could be deferred into another year. And then the addition of a second sidewalk plow, that will come with a separate report with more information in the future. And a portion of that is included in the development charges. So the proposed capital list is attached to the report with the list there and also the updated reserve schedule. You'll notice on the reserve schedule, there is a negative amount there for the Parks and Rec Department, but that will not remain for 2025 as we decided to replenish that reserve or portion of the, with a portion of the proceeds we get from the sale of the industrial lots and the lot on Nicolline. So we don't know those numbers at this time, so that will come for 2025. And the allocation of that between reserves is still to be determined by council. Excuse me. What drove that negative was based on the purchase of the strategic purchase on the property on Main Street that was made in 2024 and the funding of that out of the tax stabilization and the Parks and Rec reserves through another conversation that we had, but which at the time was in closed session, but now that it's public knowledge that purchase has been made and the purchase price has been published in other papers, I figured that it's okay to show that, demonstrate that amount. So if there's any questions regarding that or any of this report, then I will accept them. But the recommended motion would be hopefully that council then would approve the budgets for 2025. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. Questions or comments on Catherine's report, the changes that have been recommended since our budget discussions, general comments. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just a question for Catherine, maybe for Jeff. So the Nicolline Ave paving and rehab, that the $500,000, was that the cost of just doing the whole redoing the street, the water lines, everything? Because I know we had a conversation about that and we just said it just needs to be a shave and pave now, so.
Yep, through the mayor, that is just the top layer rehabilitation, so milling out, but sidewalk repair, curb repair, anything that is looks like in the near future that's going to have to be replaced anyways, we're going to bring it up to standards that we would put in with new stuff.
All right, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Jeff. Yep.
Because Councillor Reagan brought up that project, that is the project that is the next one in line in the asset management plan after Water Street. So that was entered on the list as the project that goes. And one of the things we're going to have to look at this year is there's a development at the end of Kleinfeld. And the scheduling of that project, depending on how that plays out in the next little while may affect that project, because we certainly are not going to put brand new pavement down and then have construction trucks hauling cement and materials to the end of Kleinfeld, because they're going to have to use Nicoline as their access point. So there may be some scheduling there. We talked about projects that could be completed in 2025. And that might be a project that was always maybe, depending on what happens, it might be a 2026 project, depending on that scheduling. The Nicoline, yeah.
Deputy Mayor.
This is probably for Ron, CEO. I'm just kind of curious on the capital projects. I've never really asked this before, but under what, when we see it, obviously if it's a high enough dollar value for tender, we'll see that the budget was this. If council wants to still proceed or not and vote that, obviously. What is that dollar value then? Not to pick on, I don't care which one we pick here, Public Works pavement extension for green waste area. I'm just using that as an example. That's $10,000 on here. If Jeff all of a sudden, 15,000 can maybe not sound like much to anybody, but it's 50% more, but that probably is not a tender process. It's a capital budget that we talked about spending $10,000. Where would you, whether they're even the light post for the main street at 110,000, where would you expect staff to make council aware of a discussion that, again, what I'm approving and we discussed is budget cost, and where does that fall into play?
So through the mayor to the deputy mayor. So you're approving the budget document itself. So if there's an item in there that's identified as $10,000 and the director, whichever director it is, if the price comes back at 20,000, you could expect that to come back to council because it's outside of the approved budget.
Okay.
Okay. So that has to come back in the form of a report. And that's if it does come back and it's not feasible and the director, whichever director decides that, what, this is not a good price, it may not even come back and it may not get done.
Right.
It may
No,
not.
if the director, again, on any of these, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council on this? So I guess not to keep picking on this Nicoline project, but just so that I'm clear, are you going to make that strategic decision, Jeff, then as to when you're going to do it? If we're going to, like, from an asset management standpoint, so it may, depending on how things go, it may defer or you may put it off until 2026.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, so when we've been asked about these projects, that's always the project that I've always said is kind of the bubble project. And one of the things we're going to work at is there is some engineering that has to go into it. And so I have to make sure the other projects engineered and everything gets done prior to that. But at the same time, in the background, we've just been, the development on Kleinfeld is just finally starting to show signs that it's moving forward. So between those two things, that project is the one that I'm going to have to keep an eye on. Okay. At the same time, it is in the asset management plan. It is the next project to go. So even if we got the engineering started, the idea here is if there's any concern on council of not doing the Nicoline project, then we can maybe take it off the list. But if we know it's the next one on the asset management plan, whether it's 2025 in the fall or whether it's early 2026, it still will come through. It's still on the list of projects to do.
Since we're talking about Nicoline, just for the sake of information, have we made some movement on the lot on Nicoline?
Yeah, to just give everybody an update on the lot. We've been trying to finalize the engineering. We wanted it done prior to the close of the year. We do have a plan and we did have a plan submitted before Christmas. I wasn't totally happy with the plan and I don't think the CEO was totally happy with the plan. So we had a meeting in early January and got things straightened out. So I expect the engineering to be completed in the next couple of weeks. As soon as that's done, then we can go ahead and start looking at a tender to get that completed.
And then just with the Clandeboye stormwater control, is that the project you were going to be looking at for some funding?
Yeah, I submitted a funding application to Intact under their climate resilient fund. I think it fits really well with that. In the past, they've supported lids and urban rain gardens. And so I'm really hoping that that project lines up there. And we'll go from there. I've always said that project might be a 2-year project depending on how things play out. Yeah, that's that one we're applying for funding on.
You. And then Darcy, just with the Granton Ballpark clay, I appreciate the reason why we're not moving ahead. Have you communicated that back to Ball so that they're aware of that? And will we be looking for other funding opportunities then for 2026?
Through you, the mayor, yes. I have not, I was waiting for this meeting to communicate with Ball, but I will communicate with them and let them know that we are deferring it and we will definitely look at any kind of funding as we can get. We were really hopeful in the Blue Jays fund coming again, but it was denied for this year. So we'll obviously maybe look at that again next year, but, and we'll look at other funding opportunities for sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions on the budget? Okay, so with that, we do have a recommended motion in front of us that the report be received for information and that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph accepts the draft 2025 operating budget as presented by the treasurer on December 17th, 2024, with a 4.42 municipal tax rate increase. Oh, that's right, 2025. And that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph accepts the draft 2025 capital project as presented in this report, and that just for anybody, just the written motion in the agenda just refers to a older report number, but it is report FIN-01-2025, the one that's in front of us today. So. Okay, a mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And just once again, I know we talked about it in December when it was presented, but thanks to Catherine and all of the senior leadership team in putting the operating budget together, as well as working on the capital project list. So we'll look forward to getting those going. Did you have anything else, verbal or anything, Catherine? Okay, I don't believe that there's any more planning. Public Works.
No, I do not have any verbal.
Anything verbal from Parks and Rec?
Nothing verbal for me, nope.
Anything verbal from Economic Development? I'm getting a shake of the head there. Councillor comments. Let the minutes reflect. January 22nd, do we have an outside temperature? I'll just report that the Deputy Mayor and I did just get back yesterday from the annual Roma conference. We had 2 delegations. We presented to the parliamentary assistant for the Minister of Infrastructure, and we also had a meeting with the minister himself from Municipal Affairs and Housing. It certainly was a quick 2.5 days, but lots of great discussion, lots of comments, and I think it was successful, learned a lot, great presentations, and we'll look forward to next year's Roma conference. So, yeah. With that, if there's no more councillor comments, we'll move on. There's no changes to budget, any notices of motion. So we'll go on to our motions and accounts. And the first one, of course, is for the accounts paid. The Township of Lucan Biddulph, our Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph received the attached accounts as paid for information as follows. For December 2024, $3,092,889.18. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph authorized Tina Murner to attend the AMCTO Conference 2025 in Windsor, Ontario on June 8th to 11th at a registration cost of $875 plus HST, and Lisa DeBoer for the one-day conference pass on June 10th at a registration cost of $368. Excuse me, plus HST. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. The Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph authorized Ron Raymer to attend, sorry about that, the OMAA Spring Workshop 2025 in Muskoka Lakes, Ontario on May 14th to 16th at a registration cost of $830.45 plus HST. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? That's carried. No one cares to speak to bylaws 04/2025 through 06/2025 inclusive and to 200-2025 on their first, second, and third reading, that they have been considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? That's carried. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 7:50 p.m. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We will see you in a couple weeks when hopefully it will